All right, let's jump right in. We tend to think of history as, something that's dead and gone, dusty books on a shelf. But what if I told you that the very same reasons great empires crumbled centuries ago are playing out in boardrooms today? That's what we're digging into.
And this quote, this right here is the heart of it all. Looking at the fall of Rome isn't just a history lesson. It's like looking in a mirror. Because those same cracks that brought down an empire, well, they might just be starting to show up in your own organization.
So that leads to a really important question for all of us, no matter where we are in our careers. Are you actually looking in that mirror? Are you seeing these historical warning signs in your own workplace?
To figure that out, we're going to do something like a historical post-mortem. We're going to examine the fatal symptoms that cause these massive collapses, both in the ancient world and, you guessed it, in modern companies.
And here's the main idea laid out bare. It's usually not the obvious stuff, the barbarian invasions or the disruptive competitor that lands the first blow. Nope. The deadliest enemy is almost always the systemic rot that starts from the inside.
So let's start there, with that sickness from within. Think of these as the quiet, creeping diseases that paralyze a company from the inside out, often way before anyone on the outside even knows there's a problem.
The first symptom is something called bureaucratic sclerosis. It's a fancy term for when the process, the how you do things, becomes way more important than the actual goal, the why. The whole organization just gets stiff, rigid, and innovation grinds to a halt.
And what do you get from all that stiffness? You get a competence fog. I mean, what a perfect term, right? It's that feeling when even the simplest decision has to go through endless committees and approvals, and everything just slows to a crawl. The clear path forward just vanishes.
The next internal illness is the palace gap. Historically, this was when emperors were so isolated in their palaces they had zero clue what life was like for regular people. Today, it's when the C-suite is completely disconnected from what their customers and their frontline employees are actually dealing with every day.
And this is where that gap becomes a chasm. You've got leadership making decisions based on these clean, filtered data dashboards. Meanwhile, you've got people on the front lines dealing with the messy, complicated, unfiltered truth from customers. That disconnect, it's a breeding ground for terrible decisions. And finally, for the internal sicknesses, you've got the balkanization effect. This is when a company's biggest rivals aren't out there in the market. They're right down the hall. All that creative energy gets wasted on internal politics and turf wars instead of on winning.
I mean, does this look at all familiar to you? Marketing and sales at war over who's to blame for bad leads. Engineering and product arguing over what's possible versus what's on the roadmap. All these internal fights just burn up time and focus, and they leave the front door wide open for your competitors.
And here's the bottom line. If you don't have a shared mission, you don't really have a team. You just have a collection of mercenaries, each out for themselves. And a small, passionate tribe that's united will run circles around a huge, disjointed army of mercenaries every single time. Okay, so all that decay on the inside, it never stays contained for long. Inevitably, it starts to spill out and leads to huge blunders on the outside, major strategic mistakes that show the whole world just how weak the organization has become. First up is a total classic, imperial overstretch. Rome did this by trying to defend borders that were just too big to manage. Modern companies do the exact same thing. They expand into too many new markets or launch too many new products, and they end up spreading their resources and their talent way too thin.
The source material has a brilliant name for this: diversification. It's when a company starts buying up other businesses that have nothing to do with its core mission, thinking it's diversifying, but it's actually just making the whole thing weaker and less focused.
Next, we have economic debasement. Roman emperors literally did this by mixing cheaper metals into their silver coins to cut costs. Well, corporations do the same thing, don't they? They cut corners on product quality or customer service just to pump up the next quarterly earnings report, completely destroying their brand's long-term value.
And this chart just says it all. You can absolutely juice those short-term profits, but look at the cost. Brand trust takes a nosedive, and with it, the company's actual ability to survive in the long run. It's a terrible trade-off. And this isn't just about products. It's about people, too. A scorched earth approach to your talent, treating employees like they're disposable, leads to massive burnout. It hollows out the company from the inside, leaving you with nothing but a shell. Okay, that was all pretty grim, I know. We've diagnosed the diseases.
But history isn't just a collection of warnings, it's also a guide. So now let's talk about the path forward, what the source calls directed evolution. And this is the most hopeful part. Collapse is not a foregone conclusion. By understanding these ancient patterns, an organization can make a conscious choice to adapt and to evolve, instead of just letting itself decay.
So what does it actually take to collapse-proof your organization? It really boils down to 4 key habits. First, radical transparency, to completely eliminate that palace gap. Second, strategic restraint, so you don't overstretch yourself and lose focus. Third, cultural integrity, making a pact that you will never ever debase your brand for a quick buck. And finally, you have to value agility over ritual, always putting outcomes ahead of mindless process.
And it all comes back to this one central idea. These are not new problems, they're ancient ones. If we really want to build something that lasts, we have to be willing to learn from all the great empires and companies that didn't.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Your organization, your team, even your own career, it's not a static thing. With every decision made, every single day, it's either being built up, made stronger, or it's slowly crumbling. The only question is, which is it?